Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, my beautiful friend. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm just so happy. I think what happens, a part of my glee, a part of why I always say, I'm so excited that you're here, is because I feel like you're here. Like you are driving down my driveway or you are on your way. There's just something about this moment in time that I know we're going to be spending together that just delights me. And I truly 100% feel like our hearts are knit together. So if you feel any fraction of that, you can trust that. It's real, it's reciprocal. There is 100% chance that I love you more. So just twirl around in that for a little bit because it is true. And I am so grateful for you. I'm so honored that you're here. I'm so thrilled that sometimes you are actually here and you come and you do a farm stay or you come to one of our dinners or workshops or we hang out in France together. It's all just so good. You know, those trips to France are essentially this podcast with a passport and several days and a few glasses of champagne. It's just so fun. I have also met, just like meeting you, I have met the most amazing women as I am finding guests and guests are finding me to share in these beautiful conversations. It is all just a giant love fest. And today is no different. I have the most beautiful guest who is up to very, very big things in the world. And I'm so thrilled that she is using her platform that she has worked hard to build in business and is now launching this memoir into the world and will be so in service to the people that are already in her community and will also just multiply the impact in such a really beautiful way. Betsy Pepine is a serial entrepreneur in real estate. Her brokerage, Pepine Realty, has been named as an Inc. 5000 fastest growing private company in the US multiple times and has earned spots on the top 50 Florida companies to watch and Florida Trend Best Companies to Work For lists. Additionally, the Wall Street Journal has consistently recognized Betsy's real estate team as one of the top producing real estate companies in the US. Betsy also owns a title company, real estate school, and property management brokerage. Betsy is endorsed by her mentor, real estate mogul, and Shark Tank shark, Barbara Corcoran, as well as leading media personalities Dave Ramsey and Glenn Beck. Passionate about helping at-risk families with children, Betsy founded Pepine Gives, a 501c3 nonprofit foundation that helps families facing housing insecurity. Betsy earned an economics degree from Duke University and an MBA from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Born in Philadelphia, Betsy now resides in Florida with her family. And you can learn more about her at betsypepine.com. Most importantly, about her new book that will be released in September called Breaking Boxes. And she's going to tell us all about the book, the inspiration for it, and who we can become once we start that process. So buckle up, my friends. Start that walk, that drive, those chores, whatever you are up to as you are listening. And please enjoy this conversation with Betsy Pepine. Amazing Betsy. I'm so thrilled to have this conversation today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've watched or listened to your podcast. Just got off the last one, which I listened to, was about Julian Cameron, who I love. And I have her latest book that was just released on my bedside table. And she talks about guidance and how we need to rely more on guidance and practices and questions about how we can do that more. So love that, and very happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. And that's such an amazing, I have not read her latest book yet, but it's so fascinating hearing women in just regular conversation telling me how they need to figure it out and they're feeling confused, they're feeling stuck, they're not sure what to do next. They again need to figure it out, and just offering this alternative to taking a deep breath and listening and really allowing yourself to be guided, to trust yourself that you have the answers inside of you. And if we can just quiet the noise, whether it's the external noise or the internal noise, and just listen, that we'll know the next step, the next right thing to do, even if we don't have the entire path already paved and figured out for us.
Absolutely.
So I'm so eager to talk about all the fabulous things that are going on for you, but let's start with the question that I ask all my guests, and that is, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Well, this season of mine is lasting longer, I think, than most. The season started several years ago when I found myself unhappy and almost ashamed for feeling that way, because on the outside, it looked like I had everything. And who was I to complain about my life when so many people that you see have so much less than you? It's hard to even feel comfortable enough to claim that I'm not happy and be okay with that. So that was a struggle for a couple of years. And I think I was just trying to deny it, because everyone said, you've got all this, you've got a great job, you've got great family, you've got your pets, you've got your kids. Why are you unhappy? But I was unhappy.
Sure.
I came from a family where you thought about things. Everything was thinking, and it was math and science and facts. And how do you think, Betsy? We were never asked, how do you feel? And so it was really hard for me to explore that. And so it was about 7 years ago where I'm like, I have to do something different, because if I can't leave this earth feeling this way, we're only here for such a short period of time.
Right.
And it's such a precious, we're so lucky to be here. So how can I just waste this and not feel great? And I was scrolling through the internet one day and I saw this picture of a girl, and it just stopped me in my tracks. This girl was about 4 years old. She was in a bathing suit on her front lawn. Her legs were splayed out on the lush green grass, her arms wide open. She's looking up, and there's rain pouring down on her. And her smile is this huge smile of unbridled joy. And I'm like, wow. And I immediately printed it out. I sent it to a store and had it printed on canvas. I put it up at my office. I put it up at work. It's my screensaver on my phone. I wanted to be surrounded by that energy and feeling. And this was several years ago. And then that summer, I'm in Florida and we have hurricane season.
Sure.
And so I'm bunkering down for some hurricane that's coming through. And, you know the drill. You have to get the sandbags, you get the batteries, you fill your tub with water. And a couple hours into the storm, the lights go out. And I always have a project for a hurricane storm. So bring out my project, which was putting photos into albums that I had saved. And I'm putting the photos in the albums, and then I go to throw the photo boxes away. And there I see it, I'm throwing away the last box, and I see this photo face down in the box. And I pull it out, and now it's dark, and I pull a candle over. I'm like, what is this photo? And it's a photo of a girl in her favorite red striped bathing suit. And she's in the ocean, standing 3 feet in front of her father. And she's plunging towards a wave, catching it. And on the bottom, it's my mother's handwriting. It says Betsy, age 4. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's what I want. And how do I get back there? So the last 70, sorry,
No, it's so
been a
beautiful,
journey.
right? I always tell my listeners, this is how you know I'm not lying, because it's coming out my eyeballs. It's all so beautiful, and you're so generous. Please continue.
So I just started this journey, and I started reading as much as I could and talking about feelings. And I started to go to a therapist, and she's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I feel good. She's like, well, what other feelings do you feel? And I said, well, sometimes I feel bad. And she's like, anything else? I'm like, no, those are pretty much not, that was my vocabulary. Literally, that was my vocabulary. I just didn't know how to name what I was feeling. I couldn't even, early on, it's hard for me to even access those feelings. So I have a feeling wheel now, which it's a spinning wheel, and you start out with, good or bad. And then it's like, okay, let's narrow it down, and then narrow it down some more. So I can name the feelings, because if you can name them, you can claim them. So I started that. I started doing meditation, yoga, just trying to figure out, how do I get back to that 4-year-old girl? And you're chiseling away this armor that's been built up. And what I found was that a lot of my frustration, and really it was rage inside, was just rage of feeling contained in boxes that people, society, industries, professions, and myself put myself in. And why? We don't even know we're doing it. And I don't believe most of the time there's not a malicious intent, but how it can damage us.
Right.
I come from a family where you were expected to be a physician. I mean, my dad's a physician. Both of my sisters are physicians. They both married physicians. I didn't want to be a physician. And that was so hard for me to tell them that I'm not going to follow that track. And I was, I felt judged by that. I sometimes feel like I'm not a part of the family because I'm not in the medical profession. I don't want to be in the medical profession. But what, and they were just doing the best they could. They wanted the best life for me. And they thought being a physician, that was going to create the best life that they could for their daughter. So I know it was out of love.
Sure.
But it created such heartache for me and such turmoil to follow my own path. Right. So that's what I'm saying yes to, is just embracing these feelings, being okay with these feelings, and then also standing up and for myself when I'm not comfortable with the box that I feel like someone's placing me in. And it can be something simple. Like right after I got divorced, it was about maybe 3 months after I got divorced, I went for a medical checkup, and filling out the medical intake form, they said I needed to update my medical information. Sure, go ahead. And it's a name, date of birth, address, and then it says status. And my choices were those checkboxes: single, married, divorced, widowed. And I froze. Now, I've answered that question numerous times, never even gave it a second thought. And here I froze. I was offended. I'm like, how dare they ask me? Well, first of all, why does it matter if I was in a relationship where I went to the courthouse and got it, recognized by the court of law? What relevance does that have to giving me a pap smear?
Exactly.
Right? So that was just, and then I'm like, okay, am I single or am I divorced? Because to me, I'm both, right? And now I'm 55. I've only been married 9 years of my entire life. At what point do I get to check the single box again? And I knew the minute I checked a box, regardless of which box I checked, labels would be placed on me by checking that box. Assumptions would be made about me if I checked a box. So I didn't check a box. I left it blank. And they gave me my pass mirror.
Right? I made a new box. None of your damn business.
Right. I'm like, you're not a paying customer. Can you imagine you go to Publix or a grocery store and they're asking you for this information? Like, what right do they have to ask you that information? But we do it all the time, and we give that away all the time, and we don't think anything of it. So and that's a very small example, but it's just in small and big ways. I'm saying yes. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. This does not feel comfortable for me, and that's okay.
Right. And I have so much to say. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're so, like I said before, so generous, so speaking to the right group of people in this very moment. Me at the front of the line. I'm so thrilled for this conversation, for, again, the word generosity just keeps coming up in sharing your story, because it is a global story. It's universal.
Yeah.
It is boxes that we've been put into. It's boxes that we climbed into ourselves. It's boxes we were born into. There are boxes that we didn't even know. And I'm also fairly certain that nobody is reading that form, because I have listed the first day of my first period 8,000 times. And if they are not retaining this information, why do I continue to offer it? It's just silly.
Right.
It's silly.
But I don't think people say anything. So it continues to go on the form, and we continue to collect this information, and we continue to give it. And we have to stop.
Right. And I don't even know how like they are just copying a form that it's the form they've always asked for. And I don't even think they're looking at it. And right. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. So many times I have realized that just even answering a question, that I will be midway through my answer and say, oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. I actually don't believe that anymore. Or I don't, or I will say something that on the other side of it, say, oh, I'm sorry. I need to rephrase that answer, because something just fell out of my mouth because it was my habit. But in this instance, my mindset has outgrown my habit.
Yes.
And I'm needing to course correct and take some action to create a new narrative. Because anything that is falling out of my mouth out of just a rehearsed, for a really long time, for example, for a really long time after I purchased this house, which is dreamy, and my little Southern California heart dreamed of a white house with black shutters with a historic barn in New England ever since I was a little girl. And I packed 3 times as an adult for a cross-country move and unpacked twice, still in California. So when I finally got here, I'm, of course, just in my bliss. And it takes a lot of time this property requires a lot of my time and energy, and I happily give that. And I found myself, which I'm being really careful now, of falling into a narrative that, well, this place takes all day long every day, so I can't leave. People have to come here, or I go to school pickup and the airport. That was my story. And it's actually not true. And it doesn't have to be true. And for the first time, how I'm saying yes to myself in this season, I've hired support. So I have some farm hands that I give a task to. And
love it.
Oh my goodness.
We call that your Huda. Who not out, your Huda.
Oh my gosh, I just bought that book. I just started reading it last night. It's so
That's like
good.
me, but yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's just, oh, first of all, I'm repeating some line that isn't even
Yeah.
accurate
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, I can leave. And now I actually have help. So
Hmm.
it's time to create a new narrative and to
Yeah.
just look back at what other things am I telling myself
Yeah.
that are not serving me.
Well, I feel like I was literally Jim Carrey in the Truman Show. And I was living this life oblivious to the fact that it was being played out on a set orchestrated by others. And that's not
Mhm.
acceptable to me anymore.
Right.
And so I'm going to question. I went back to, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and then I left the Catholic Church and raised my children in a Methodist church. And then during this period of growth and trying to figure out why am I unhappy, I wasn't at a church. And I said, I would like to go back to the Catholic Church. It gave me a lot of peace,
Mhm.
the rituals and the songs. And I live a half a mile from the church I grew up in. But I said, I can't go back inauthentically. So I found out when the confession, we do confession in a Catholic church. And so I
Sure.
found out when confession was, it was on a Saturday. They were taking confessions on Saturdays at 5. I go on Saturday at 5, get in the line. It's my turn. I go into the confessional room. Haven't been there in decades. And normally it's a private, there's a screen. So you don't see the priest. The priest is here. There's a screen and you're beside the screen. I pull the curtain back. I'm like, I'm done hiding. I'm not hiding
Right.
anymore. So I pull the screen back and I say, you say, bless my Father, for I have sinned. My last confession was over 3 decades ago. And he's like, go on. And I don't know what to say because I hadn't
Right.
been in confession in so long. And I said, I want to come back to the church, but I can only come back if you understand my beliefs and are okay with them. He's
Mm.
like, go on. And I said, I was, and these are, considered sins in the Catholic Church. I said, I was living with my husband before we were married. So I lived in sin. I said, I got divorced. I'm not getting that marriage annulled. I said, years later, I lived with another man in sin, and I'm okay with that. I said, I have two daughters. I'm a single mom with 2 daughters. They've both come out as gay, and I'm fine with that. And he's like, is that all? And I said, no. I said, I actually think women should be priests in the Catholic Church. And I'm on birth control. And he says, are you done? And I said, yes, I'm done. And uh, you've been absolved of your sins. Say 3 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers. And then I hear a click. And I look down and he has a tally counter. When people are
Oh my
taking like movie tickets,
gosh.
and he
Yes.
he clicks it. He's counting how many people are going through confession. But I didn't want to go back to the church feeling like they think I believe everything they think
Right.
if I'm sitting in the pew. I
Hmm.
want to go in and they know that I'm okay going in there, knowing my beliefs, and they know my beliefs, and they're okay with my presence. And it felt so good because I wouldn't have felt comfortable just sitting there thinking this something doesn't feel right to me. And so just even being aware of that and then being able to take action is for me a big step in the right direction of true authenticity.
Right. And similarly to the medical form, it didn't sound like, based on the counter, the ticker, that he's even listening. Like, he waits for you to stop talking and he says,
I,
go
I,
on. And then you go on. And then, are you done? And okay, here's the recipe. So much of that experience,
yeah,
99.9% of that experience was for you.
yeah,
Right. And it was your
totally.
action and it
Mhm.
was your decision. And I'm really interested, and I'm going to put some margin on this in case you don't want to answer this. And
Okay.
my podcast producer they just take this whole part out. But I grew up in church as well, not the Catholic Church. But so I've not done, I mean, we do confession every single Wednesday night, and then you like become a Christian again, and then you
Oh,
like just like, yeah, so
okay.
it's a whole different gig. And I'm really fascinated by how I was in some resistance about something you said about living in sin. And I'm wondering how you feel about that title, concept,
Oh,
situation now, like as the woman that you are now,
uh,
and just that whole umbrella of living in sin and who gets to decide that and
oh,
who, you know what I mean?
I mean, my personal belief, I don't believe I lived in sin, but I know
Right.
that's what the church that I was raised in believes
Yeah.
to be true. But no, I don't. I, there's a, I got
Right.
a lot of
Like
things,
that's a
but no, I
whole
mean, that's,
nother show.
yeah,
I totally get it. I just
yeah,
thought, wow, isn't that fascinating how, again, a narrative that's no longer serving us,
right.
that these titles and comments, like I would have said that too 1,000 times. I'm
Yeah,
apparently I'm living in sin now
yeah,
because I'm divorced, and that's, whatever. I mean, I don't even know, because I feel like I'm living in bliss and I'm living in choice and I'm living in agency and presence, and like you, feeling very connected to the divine
mhm,
regardless of what's going on with the other people that are sitting in these pews next to
right,
me on a Sunday morning.
right. I just try to, for what works for me is taking what I can from anything
Exactly.
that I resonate with, and not judge the rest. It's just that may work
Right.
for some people. It doesn't work for me. You know, my mother, she's 83, and um, so I raised my children Methodist, and one Easter I called her. She lives 15 minutes away from me, and I called my parents and I said, "Hey, can you join us for Easter Mass? Because we were going to go to Easter brunch afterwards. I thought it would be lovely to have everybody together for both things." And she said, "No, Betsy," she said, I have to go to mass. I said, "Well, you can come to ours." And she said, "Well, then I would go to hell."
Oh,
And, and I was like, "What?" And she said, "Well, I'll go to hell." And I really couldn't even believe it. And I was like, "Mom," and I said, because we never missed, I literally never missed a mass until I was 8, from the time I was 0 to 18, except for the
sure.
day I was born, because I was born on a Sunday, not missed a mass. And I always thought it was a love of God, a relationship with God.
Right.
So I asked her, I said, is the reason why you go to church out of love of God or out of fear?" And she said, "Fear of going to hell." And
Mm.
I was I just couldn't even imagine living a life like that and feeling like you truly are going to go to hell if you don't go sit in this church, or now she watches it on television, but
Mm-hmm.
if you don't attend mass, you're going to hell. So it doesn't work. That concept doesn't work for me. But there are pieces of it that give me great peace and
Totally.
comfort. So I just try to take that.
Right. And that, like you said, that's how we're approaching everything,
Right.
where your mom and, in some instances, my mom too,
Yeah.
they were, they just had
Yeah.
different tools. They're doing the best they can with the
Right.
tools they have, and that's the information they had. And they were from a generation where I'm only saying this once and you'll do what you're told, and
Oh yeah.
however you in
Yes.
embody that information, even though you were 5 the first time you heard it and you're still repeating it at 85, you just, that's just how they were.
Yeah.
And curiosity and choice were, that is not even,
Oh yeah.
that's not available to me. Why,
No.
what are these words you speak of? That
Right.
sounds like
Yeah.
an
I got you sent to your
animal.
room. Yeah.
Right. Or like that's your pet. Your
Yeah.
A cat is curious. That's
Yeah.
it. Because they don't know better and
Yeah.
this person is not their dad, so they're
Yeah.
allowed.
Yeah.
So it's really, really fascinating, and these uninvestigated beliefs that can
Yeah.
become the
Oh
guardrails
yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
But we, like you said, approaching all things, a book you read, a podcast you hear, a conversation you overhear at the grocery store,
Mhm.
and when you're sitting in church, you're just taking
Mhm.
the information that is in service to
Mhm.
you in this moment in time, and letting the rest go, and like you said, not judging it.
Right. Well,
And
not judging it unless I have to. I do have a caveat with that. So there are times when I feel compelled that I have to to say something. So,
Yes.
for example, I was reading a national business newspaper and I love the paper. I read it, read the entire thing, put it down one day, and I'm like, something was bothering me. I couldn't figure out what was bothering me. Read it again, read this one section, the whole section, business section again. And I saw, this was just a couple of years ago. Every time, this is a business newspaper, national business newspaper. Every time the female was mentioned in an article, her age was put behind her name.
What?
Everything, you would be floored. Every time a man was mentioned, there was no parentheses with her name. Now I'm thinking, I've been interviewed by a lot of papers and a lot of magazines. No one has ever asked me my age. So how are they getting their ages? These people the writers are going back and then finding out how old these women are. And when I looked, all the different articles throughout this section of the paper, they were all written by different people. So it's like, I have a hard time believing that every writer chose to write their stories like that, which to me, I feel like it must have been a newspaper's stance. So when you said, take what you want and leave the rest, I'm like, oh no. So I wrote a letter to the editor. I said, you've got to look at this. This is absolutely unacceptable in this day and age. And he wrote me back and said, I don't understand it, but you're right. And we're going to do something about it. But I was like, how? But again, I think we have to say something. Another example was a regional paper, and they still do this. And this really bothers me. You look at the sports section, it'll say, they'll put the basketball schedule in the newspaper. It says basketball. Let's say it says Duke versus UNC, 7 p.m. CBS. Then it has another one, basketball. UNC Charlotte at Greensboro, 7 p.m. Then it says women's basketball, Ohio State versus Kentucky. And I'm like, wait a minute, basketball and women's basketball. What's wrong with that? Why is basketball, why is that term by default, you're supposed to know that that's male? And then you have to qualify female basketball?
Right.
It
Well,
should
the
be
first
basketball.
one is real basketball,
Right.
and then other
Right.
basketball.
But imagine this. Would this ever be tolerated? Basketball. Duke versus UNC, 7 p.m. Native American basketball.
Right.
Never.
Never.
Jewish people basketball. Never. African American black basketball. Never. But it's still acceptable to discriminate against females, and nobody bats an eye. It doesn't. People read the paper. They don't even think. We don't even see it, and that's what's scary to me is we don't even see it. But if we see it, we have to say something, because if you Google basketball, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of images of men playing basketball.
And there's a reason that you're seeing it, right? The reason that you're seeing it is because you're supposed to say something. If listener, if you are driving down the street, reading the paper, sitting in your church, sitting at your doctor's office, sitting at coffee with your friends, and you hear something and it hits you in a way, take a breath and then be guided of what you're supposed to do with this information, because it is not an accident. It's why I know that I'm supposed to be Amelia's mother. I'm 56 years old, raising a 10-year-old. I waited forever to be a mom, and it was quite a windy road. And as every day of her life and her unicorn magic, I know that I am supposed to be her mother, and that it's going to be done differently than it would have been done when I was 26 and determined that I was ready. So we are all having the experiences that we're having, and they're hitting us in a new way for a reason. And I think we just have a responsibility to ourselves and to our purpose and the people that are in earshot to do something about that from an empowered, guided place.
Right. Absolutely. And it's not just females. I mean, I played pickleball, and a guy that plays pickleball with me. He came over, and he's a runner, and he's always wearing his running shoes to play. And he had on orange sherbet colored running shoes. And I was like, I love your shoes. And he comes over to me and he's like, they're women's. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I said, why? It's curious, why,
Sure.
why he's buying women's shoes. He said, well, I really like fun, bright colors. He said, if you look at men's sports shoes, they're all somber, dark colors. He said, you have to buy female shoes. He's like, I just buy them a size and a half up. He said, where I draw the line is pink soles. If they're pink soles, I don't buy them. And that would have never, I wasn't aware of that until he said that to me. And then I actually Googled it, and he was right. It's all somber, dark colors. Occasionally you'll see like a Christmas red, but that's about as bright as you get. You don't see the pastels and bright neon colors. It's very dismal. And so and then I remember another instance where I was dating a gentleman who, he was very progressive, I think. His daughters are in their 30s, and all of his daughters have androgynous names. And he said, because he knew as a executive, and he was, able to admit this, when he saw a resume and he knew it was definitely one gender or another, he immediately thought things. And he said, I don't want that for my daughters. I want them to have a neutral stance when they do interviews. And they're in their 30s. But we were watching television one night, and there was commercials of a woman cooking or cleaning, or, one of the traditional roles. And he was highly offended. And I thought he was highly offended because for some reason, maybe that some women might not find that empowering. He was offended because he never sees, he's a single dad. He never saw males in those roles. He's like, I do all of that. And he got offended. He got offended when the teacher at school said, did his ex sign the report card? He's like, wait a minute. Yeah. So it works both ways. It's not just some people think, oh, it's just women are all about women. No, it's both ways. We have to be aware of everybody that's getting impacted by this.
Right. And to disrupt patterns that are just being repeated out of convenience or
exactly
just habit. And that's where we have an opportunity. We don't have to be mad about everything. It's not about that. It's about awareness, and it's about love and acceptance, and the things that people get really passionate about, and the things that people just get pissed about. That's two different motivations. And sometimes the latter is from, like, you feel like you have a lack of control, and back to some traditional beliefs from the church and about alternative lifestyles. And it's not even an alternative lifestyle, it's just lifestyle. It's just this person loves women, this person loves men, this person, you would say they're a woman if you saw them at the grocery store, but they say they're a they. Who cares? It is not hurting you. What is actually hurting you is this rage inside of you because it's different than you. It's just like, is sometimes yes, absolutely say something. Sometimes yes, just let it fall because it's the person sitting next to you in the pew, like they're getting something out of it and it's not offensive to you. It's just, you're going through the buffet and the dish is not appealing to you. You're not going to require the people to remove this. I don't even want to look at that because that does not appeal to me. I don't eat fish.
Right.
Oh my gosh, just take the thing that you would like to eat and go sit down and have a nice conversation, please.
Well, that reminds me of I was just like passively passing out something. So I have a company, and we were being submitted for awards for our local chamber. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And the award categories were, tech company of the year, environmental company of the year, large business of the year, small business of the year. And then there's this leading women's enterprise with a little asterisk. Like,
Oh, and an asterisk.
there's an asterisk. And that's why I look at
Bring
that.
it.
It says have to be at least 51% female owned. And so they're asking what categories we want to be considered for. Well, there was only two categories that we would even be qualified for. One was large business of the year because of the number of people we had at our company, and then the female one. And I really deliberated because I'm like, I wanted to give our company and our agents the best chance of getting recognized for their efforts, but I was conflicted with that female category. But I checked them both, and we went to the award ceremony, and we didn't win either. And a couple of years later, we're faced with the same situation again. They want to recognize us. Which categories do we want to be recognized in? And I couldn't do it. I couldn't check the women's category. I don't want an award because I have a vagina.
Right.
And that's what I felt like that's why does it matter that
You're
I'm
the underdog?
but I don't want a handout. I want to win on merit. And, but I was conflicted because I wanted to win for the company, and I recognized that the chances would go down drastically if I only check one box, large business of the year, and that was considered the biggest award in our community. And no one knew I only checked one box that year. There was no leading men's enterprise. If there had been a leading men's enterprise, I would have been fine. But there was no leading men, so I just checked.
How about just leading enterprise?
Yeah. Well, they do large and small because of sometimes when you're growing, it's hard to compete and have the impact.
Sure.
So that's why they break it up by large. So it's large and small. So it's large business of the year. And that's the box I checked. I get a call from the chamber a couple of days later. Betsy, I think you forgot to check large women's enterprise. I said, no, I didn't forget to check that. And they said, don't you want to be considered for that? You'd be a shoo-in. I said, no, I don't. So we go to the award ceremony. And we won.
Congratulations.
And it was wonderful. And I felt like I truly felt that I had advanced the plight of women that night. Now, nobody else knew. I only entered one category. I didn't tell anybody. I just did it because it didn't feel right to me to check that second box.
Yeah.
And I might have a conversation with them at some time in the future about that, because I know some people feel like you need to have those categories to bring people up. But if I just don't, I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want anything because of my gender. I got a board position. I was invited to be on a bank board, and that had been something on my vision board for years. I wanted to be a part of a bank board, and was invited to be one, and was so excited. And after I accepted, the one officer turned to the other officer, both males, and said, gosh, thank goodness she accepted. And I was like, oh, what is that about? And they said, well, our board is comprised of all white middle-aged men, and we were under a lot of stress to bring in diversity. And it felt like it just felt like somebody stuck a knife in my stomach and turned it. That's not a compliment, and I don't think people realize that, but that's not a compliment. And I really struggled with, do I keep this and stay on the board and be a model for other women?
Yeah. Or
do I step off? And I elected to stay on because I do want women represented on bank boards. And so I ended up staying on, but it was a conflict.
Right. We're in the messy middle for our daughters.
Yeah, we are.
And we can handle it because we don't need their checkbox. We don't need, we'll revolutionize all the forms, and our granddaughters will have something to be passionate about, and we'll tell them what used to be on the forms.
And that's why I wrote this book. I mean, I wrote this book. This book has nothing to do with my business. This book is all about breaking boxes and my journey in and out of boxes. And my only hope was that just one person be changed by a story and have then the courage to break out of one of their boxes, and leaving this behind as a legacy for my children and grandchildren.
Absolutely. And what do you want the reader to take away? Who are you writing to in this book?
Well, it was written, I mean, I'm 55 female in business. But it's really meant for everybody, but it primarily is targeting, I think, women from, 30 to 65 who are starting to see, I think when you start at the beginning, when you're starting to grow up, you don't really see a lot of things. You're not aware of a lot of things. And the older you get, the more you see and realize what's going on. So it's for those people who are open to exploration and growth and realize that boxes I'm in real estate. Boxes are designed to be temporary. You box stuff up, you take it to your new home, and then you throw it out in the curb. They're not meant to take up residence in, right?
Wow.
And we get very comfortable in our boxes. And so it's just meant, the book is meant for people who perhaps want to explore that maybe they're in the wrong box and how might I negotiate a different way. And also we put other people in boxes, like we are to blame as well. And just being more accepting of everybody and everything, and realizing that nothing is black and white. It's all shades of gray, and have grace.
Right. I love that. Is there anything in particular in the book that you would like to share with the listener? Let's say she is absolutely finding herself in a box. Like, are there actionable tips in the book that help people move through that process, or what do you offer?
Yeah, there is at the end, I do offer some tips for me, but the book is mainly about the stories.
Yeah.
Um and just stories of boxes that from your family of origin, from society, from your profession, from your gender, all the roles you play, the good mom box, the dutiful wife box, the good daughter box, those kinds of boxes. Um so, but for me, the biggest thing was, is really going back to the feelings, how we started, is
Right.
trusting. And I didn't do this for the first 4 decades of my life, trusting what your body is telling you. Your body doesn't lie. And I ignored it for so long because I went right to, well, what do I think? What do the facts tell me? And I was ignoring the fact that I was in total discomfort, and feeling physical pain, like true physical pain and emotional pain, but ignoring that because maybe the facts didn't line up right, or I wasn't shared everything. I didn't have complete knowledge, but my body was telling me to move in a certain direction, but I would override that. So for me, the biggest thing I do is ask myself, am I making this decision out of love, or am I making this decision out of fear? And what I had found was a lot of my decisions that got me into boxes, I was making those decisions based on fear of loss of relationship, loss of financial security are the two big ones for me. And so really understanding that I have nothing to fear. I mean, the world gives you everything that you need, truly. And so moving towards making decisions out of love. And the only way I can start doing that is recognizing that the feelings that I have to begin with. I've got a great app on my phone. It's How We Feel. It's called How We Feel. And it checks in with me several times a day. And you put your setting in, like, who are you with? What are you doing? And hundreds of different emotions. And you click which one you're feeling. So you can start seeing your patterns and recognitions, and what situations are causing me to feel this way versus this way. And why might that be? And how do I move towards that which feels good and away from that which feels bad? It's very simple. I feel like I complicate things, and we complicate things. But it's very simple. If we just follow that, don't hurt people, and move towards that which feels good, we'd be set.
Right. No, I love that. And I love the simplicity of it, although it is not simple to implement. It takes great intention because it's just unfamiliar. And I'm speak for myself, but I would imagine I'm not the only one who almost gaslights myself if I don't feel good. Well, it's probably, they were probably having a bad day, or it's because of this. And if I didn't, if I would have shown up in a different way, then they wouldn't. Like, oh my gosh, just own that felt yucky,
Right.
and you don't want to do it again.
Right.
And in retrospect, the last 5 times I talked to this person, it felt yucky.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to make a change now. And this is when you get the opportunity. It's okay that you've been in a box. That's fine. Now you realize it's not a box you would like to stay in. So get out, close the lid, stand on top of it. You've got a better view now. You're taking all of the information and the person that you've become partially because of that box. So now it's a tool. Don't get in it, but stand on top of it. And now from this higher vantage point, do the next right thing.
Absolutely. My therapist said to me, she said, "My Betsy, isn't you'd be amazed at how convenient it is for everybody else when you can't say yes to yourself." Wow. So true.
It is. And it feels like, whew, that's just too much.
Yeah.
Wendy can say yes to herself. That's fine. She's only available for what delights her. She's a Disney princess with woodland creatures hopping along her lawn. I mean, it is crazy. There was a baby porcupine on my lawn yesterday.
Oh, wow.
What? I am a Disney princess. I don't know. Bunnies are hopping.
Wow.
It's just like such a magical time right now that I'm sure it always happened, but I'm just present and being aware of it. But we can do hard things, and this is the right kind of hard, and learning to practice saying yes to ourselves, whether it is just I'm gonna have another cup of coffee, or I'm not going to finish this one. Just practicing those. How do I feel in this moment? What would I do? I want to shut my eyes for 10 minutes. If you're not driving, you can totally do that. You could just getting into the practice of listening to your body, trusting her wisdom. And then honoring her and not shaming her for feeling what she's feeling. I was reading a book by Jen Hatmaker. I'm looking at my shelf. Fierce, Free, and Full of Fire. And she references another woman's work about just being in touch with your body. And one way to start this practice, if you've been ignoring yourself, is to refer to your body as her. Instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, my thighs, this is just unacceptable." And then if you say, "Oh my gosh, her thighs," like you feel like such a jerk because you wouldn't say that about another person, but it just helps you it helped me reframe a tenderness toward my body, a gratitude for my strong body. It carries me and a lot of people around. And just these slight course corrections, these slight tweaks that really make a big difference. And once we get some of those under our belt, then we can get out of the next box and stand on top of that one as well.
My girlfriend, she talks to herself as though she just pretends she's talking to her daughter. That really
that'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. There's things you say to yourself like you would never say to your daughter. You know?
I definitely became very nicer to myself once Amelia arrived, because I never wanted her to hear me say some of the really mean things that I used to say about my body. So that's beautiful. I've loved this conversation. I cannot wait to read your book. Please tell everybody where they can find and follow you, get the book, what's next, all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is my name, betsypepine.com. The book is coming out September 23rd. It'll be available on hardback, softback, Kindle, and Audible. Pre-sales are, I think Amazon has it up on pre-sales already, and you can find the link on my website or go to Amazon directly. And then if you go to my website, you can also sign up for my newsletter.
Wonderful. And you recorded the audio for the Audible book,
I did.
correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
How
it's a
was
it's a,
that?
a memoir, so they recommend that authors do that.
Right.
It was that got me outside my box, big
Yes.
time. It was a wonderful experience. I'm so glad I did it. Yeah, but it makes you relive. This is a really emotional book for me, and so
Sure.
you relive the stories again, and so it was definitely hard, in a different way, not obviously reading it, but just having to feel everything again. So but it was lovely. Had great. It was.
Right. And to be witness to
Mhm,
your own evolution and your own up level.
mhm. Yeah, that's true.
That's beautiful.
True. Hadn't thought of that, but
That's so fun. I had an experience. I am in the process of a divorce, and we had our first four-way meeting, which I didn't even know what that was, but that's for anyone else who doesn't know. You are with your attorney, and my ex was with his attorney, and we were at across the table from each other, and our attorneys were talking to each other about us, but not talking to us and not using our names. So
oh,
they would say, your client
oh,
did this,
interesting.
that, and the other thing, and my client wants this and that. And then opposing counsel would say, well, your client, da 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 da. And it was like I was watching a show. It was so fascinating because it was incredibly transactional, which I could see in some instances that might be offensive and awful. But for me, to not have the emotional charge that some of those conversations have, that made me avoid them because I was afraid,
Yeah.
this person who is representing me was having this conversation like it was nothing, because
Mhm.
it was nothing to her.
Right.
It was
That's
so
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah.
And at the end, I got emotional around a topic, and I shared what was on my heart. And it wasn't anything offensive or anything I was trying to grab onto. It was an awareness or a reason why I wanted one of the things that's
Mhm.
on the agreement. And then the meeting closed, and I had my tissues, and my ex and his counsel left, and my lawyer said, how are you doing? I know that's really hard, and just take as much time as you need. And I
Mhm.
said, oh, I'm not sad. I'm fascinated, and I'm amazed at how far I've come and how empowered I feel from the last time I sat across the table and talked about these topics with that human.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I am a queen. I have
I love it.
graduated.
I love it.
It was so beautiful. And
Mhm.
because of that, like, I had so much love and appreciation for
Mhm.
that human across the table.
Mhm.
And it helped me, like, we've had the most beautiful, expansive, long, informational sharing conversations since that,
Wow.
because I was witness
Mhm.
to my evolution. I was witness to an experience that was no longer my day to day. And I could see, I did that. And I didn't have to be mean or bitchy or hate him to be her. Like, none of
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I just got to up level, and my rising tide raised
Love
all the
it. Love
ships. Hmm.
it.
It was so good.
Well, you shifted the paradigm in your mind of what
Yes,
a,
I
a
did.
divorce, doesn't have to be this animosity. It can be a friendly, amicable divorce.
Totally. And I decided from the very beginning, I'm having the best divorce there's ever been had.
Mm.
And
Love
people
it.
would interact with me and say, oh gosh, be careful and make sure you do this and this and this. And my husband, devastated me financially and took my children. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry that was your experience. That will not be mine.
Yeah.
And I love you and I appreciate your efforts, but I'm actually not available for this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that sounded crazy and audacious. And here we are on the other side, and it works, my friend. So whatever you are available for and what you're not available for and what you're not willing to tolerate, you get to decide. And then you get to, when you look back, you can celebrate the growth.
Wait, and you set I love that you set the intention, and then you saw it come to fruition. You literally saw it come to fruition, which is wonderful.
Right. And I don't know what kind of experience he's having, but whatever he expected and planned for is what he's getting. And whatever I expect and plan for is what my experience is.
Love it.
We're powerful. It is fun to be us.
Well, I do think, I mean, going through a divorce is incredibly painful. I was shocked because it's so common. I just assumed naively, I was 32 at the time with a 1 and 2 year old. I don't know. I thought that might somehow be not so bad. And it was so traumatic. I mean, not even the actual divorce, but just what you go through. And I think that's why I also struggled with that checkbox. It's like, you want me to, I just went through all this and you just want me to check a box? No,
right.
That is not going to happen. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. I've loved all of this. Thank you so much, Betsy. I'm so eager to read the book and follow along on your journey. And I would love to have you back and hear about all the other amazing things that you're up to, your nonprofit and your fabulous business that you are so successful, award-winning business.
Well, we are going to start I don't know in what form, but I would like to start a collection of people sharing the boxes, their stories, and how they got up. So I'm not sure what platform we're going to end up on, but we'll let you guys know about that as well.
I love that. Thank you so much. This has been a delight.
Thank you. Well, have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.